welcome to Life Matters. I'm your host, Brendan O'Connell. Well, we have a very important topic that will be more and more obvious or more and more known in the future, but we're kind of on the cutting edge here at Life Matters, and it has to do with aborted remains in our drinking water or our wastewater treatment centers, and we have someone who's done a lot of study on this. Her name is Abigail Forman. She's a public policy analyst and is the work's primary author and writer that she does with Liberty Council Action. She previously worked as the Director of Public Affairs for the Right to Life UK, that's United Kingdom, and served in the Minnesota House of Representatives for 2 terms, 2014 to the 2018. She holds a magna cum laude bachelor's degree in political science and history and a master's in public policy from the University of Minnesota. Well, welcome, Abigail Forman.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to join you.
Abigail, how did you ever get involved with this particular topic?
Well, that is a great question. So I joined Liberty Council Action as a policy analyst a little over a year ago. And when we started to learn about this topic, my boss, the president of Liberty Council Action, asked if I could do a little bit more of a deep dive and research this topic a little bit more thoroughly. And the more I started to, the more I realized this is astounding, what has been happening over the last couple decades. Both the original approval of the abortion pill protocol, which violated environmental law, as well as just the increasing use of it and the relaxed regulations. They've just become increasingly less stringent. So we really believe this issue is not only one that needs to be addressed now, but there's an opportune time to address it now under the Trump administration.
What federal agencies have abdicated their responsibility regarding enforcing like environmental laws?
It's a great question. So the FDA and the EPA, so the Environmental Protection Agency, the Food and Drug Administration, both of these agencies have purview over drug approvals, particularly when it comes to how they impact the environment. So specifically, the FDA is meant to do an environmental assessment for every drug approval. This is based on the Clean Water Act and the National Environmental Policy Act. Both of those, I'll just start with the Clean Water Act. It says that any action taken by a federal agency that may result in the discharge or runoff of pollutants needs to ensure that the action complies with all state, federal, local, et cetera, laws, respecting the control and abatement of water pollution. When the FDA approved this drug, they did not. They failed to look at any state laws related to water control, pollution. They failed to also look at medical waste regulations, which we know that if medical waste is improperly disposed of, there's a chance that that's going to be a pollutant and pollute our waters. Then we also have the National Environmental Policy Act. The National Environmental Policy Act outlines that every major federal action that may significantly impact the quality of the human environment must issue a detailed statement on the possible effects of that action. So in this case, what we would say is significant. So what is significant? The Code of Federal Regulations defines significant to include the extent to which the action might be controversial. Well, I would say anything having to do with abortion is unfortunately controversial. So if you're going to allow abortion providers to issue a pill that's going to create medical waste, I mean, babies aren't medical waste. Hear me when I say that. Babies deserve dignified treatment. We shouldn't be murdering them. Now, if you disagree with me on that point, you can at least agree with me that the result is still going to be placenta, body parts, developing cranial structures, blood, body fluids, etc. All of that technically constitutes medical waste, and it needs to be disposed of properly, because if you improperly dispose of it, you run the risk of pollution, of environmental pollution. Now, the FDA basically ignored this. Sorry, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Well, I was just wondering, so basically for our general public, we're talking about chemical abortions here versus surgical abortions, and the chemical abortions are often flushed down the toilet. Is that correct?
Yes. So in a chemical abortion, maybe I should back up a little bit. It's a great question. In a chemical abortion, essentially, a woman is going to be given two different pills. There's mifepristone that essentially cuts off vital nutrients to the child, effectively starving the child. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well, because mifepristone itself forms active metabolites that can get into our water. So and I'll address that in a moment. The second pill, misoprostol, effectively forces the woman's body to expel the fetus. And if she's at home, what she is told, you can go on Planned Parenthood's website, other abortion providers, is to sit on the toilet. Often they're told to flush the fetal remains, which not only is traumatic, women are not expecting to see fully formed fetuses floating in the toilet. The helplines are flooded with women that are just in hysterics because they did not realize they're sold a bill of lies. They didn't realize what they would see. They're like, oh, it's pregnancy tissue. It's, don't worry about it. But in actuality, arguably, it's much more traumatic than a surgical abortion. In a surgical abortion, she's not going to see what's happening. So yes, she sits on the toilet. Essentially, she ends up flushing the baby down the toilet, which again violates medical waste regulations because medical waste is meant to be disposed of, typically via incineration or other means. We would argue these babies should be cremated or buried. Ultimately, again, we shouldn't be murdering babies. But if you're going to allow this to happen, certainly we need to abide by environmental law and medical regulations, medical waste regulations. So that's kind of the overarching premise of what we're saying, because when the FDA originally approved this again in 2000, they essentially ignored all of that. They did not look at the fact that this would be generating fetal remains, and they knew that this would be going down the toilet. That's absolutely, on their part, I would argue, gross negligence. But under the Clinton-led administration, they rushed the approval process, such that now we see, like you mentioned, the vast majority of abortions these days are chemical abortions. Originally, it was a very small percent. Back in 2000, you could argue maybe it was negligible. But even if that is the case, that's certainly not the case now. And there is a duty, I believe, on the FDA and on the EPA to relook at that original environmental assessment, to do a proper environmental assessment that looks at the result of aborted fetal remains in our water. As well as, and after I'll pause after I say this, as well as the chemical contaminants. So I mentioned mifepristone forms active metabolites. When you take mifepristone, your body metabolizes it, and then you excrete it. You excrete active abortion pill components that can retain the effect of the parent drug. So the parent drug, mifepristone, like I said, effectively starves a child. It cuts off vital nutrients by blocking progesterone. Progesterone is a vital fertility hormone. Now, if you have a contaminant in your water that blocks a vital fertility hormone, that's concerning. Well, most people would say, well, don't our wastewater treatment plants, don't our drinking water treatment plants get rid of this? Unfortunately, no. Most conventional wastewater treatment plants are not equipped to remove pharmaceutical contaminants. Neither are most drinking water treatment plants. And so, what we have here is the possibility of mifepristone contaminating our drinking water. We don't know for sure, we don't know the extent of it, but it's certainly something that we need to be looking into. The American people deserve to know what's in their water. Additionally, we do know it's in our source water. So mifepristone itself has been detected in fresh and salt water. Again, what we're calling on the FDA, what we're calling on the EPA to do is test our drinking water supplies to see the extent and the level to which it might be contaminating the water we drink, because that could have an effect on our health, both short and long term.
So the wastewater treatment plants, are they now natural? They're supposed to have fecal matter, maybe toilet paper. That's the best in all worlds, and that's what they're built for primarily.
Correct.
What happens
Yeah,
when a baby's body parts come down or into the wastewater treatment plant? If it makes
it's a really
it that
good
far.
question. And yeah, and and I apologize for the graphic nature of what I'm about to share, but you are absolutely right. The EPA says you should only flush toilet paper. That is the only thing we should be flushing down the toilet. Consider that in some states it's actually illegal to flush goldfish. Well, a baby at 10, 11, 12 weeks, the gestational age at which a lot of these babies are being aborted, that's an inch and a half to 4 inches. And we know women are getting this pill beyond the 10 weeks that it's approved for. So we know that there are very likely babies that are that size being aborted, flushed down the toilet. Often they're going to get stuck, and we have reports of babies being stuck in pipes, being caught in wastewater filtration processes, wastewater treatment workers being traumatized by finding babies. It is incredibly disheartening and disturbing on so many levels. And then consider as well that some of these babies might actually be contributing to sewer overflows. Because, like I say, if you have an 1.5 to 4 inch size of solid organic material, that is potentially going to clog a pipe and cause a sewer overflow. And sewer overflows happen on a regular basis. The EPA estimates hundreds of billions of gallons of raw sewer water, which is dangerous because obviously of the pathogens it carries. It's a huge health hazard. But also then add to that fact that you could have aborted fetal remains in that water entering our source waters, entering our lakes, streams, and rivers. Again, this happens more regularly than I would care to admit. Just in my home state of North Carolina, we had a sewer overflow into a local lake this month. It's disturbing. It disturbs my relationship with the environment, which I would say also is a violation of the National Environmental Policy Act, and I can get into that a little bit more as well.
Now, we have a couple of charts and that sort of thing. I'd like to put up the first chart. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So is this chart showing the bar chart showing
Yes.
the increase in abortions?
Yes, it is.
Yep. So we have over time seen the use of the chemical abortion pill increase dramatically. When it was originally approved in 2001, about 6% of all abortions were chemical abortions. That's a fairly small amount of abortions. Now, over time, now in 2023, the most recently reported data says that 63% of all abortions are chemical abortions. Considering that we have a very relaxed reporting requirements, in fact, some states don't report at all. Also, considering the fact that women can get these pills illegally online, we would estimate that of the about 1 million abortions that occur annually, probably 70% are chemical abortions. That's about 700,000 abortions occurring annually. That constitutes about 30 to 40 tons of medical waste entering our wastewater treatment systems annually. That would be a national scandal on in any other context. Consider if a hospital said that, oh, we're just going to dispose of 30 tons of our medical waste down the toilet. There would be calls for regulation. This huge increase in the use of the chemical abortion pill, again, they should have done the proper environmental assessment initially, but certainly we need to do one now.
Mm-hmm. And what about the fertility rate? We have a second chart here. It shows, I'm not sure exactly what it shows, but it looks like a decrease in something.
Yeah. Yes, it's a decrease in fertility. So what we have seen in the United States over time is a decrease in fertility. Worldwide, you see 1 in 6 people struggle with infertility, and the U.S. is not exempt from that trend. That's about the same in the U.S. About 1 in 6, 1 in 7 individuals struggle with fertility. And so our fertility rates are going down. This is actually such an issue. It's so alarming that Secretary Kennedy, when he was on the campaign trail, promised to investigate this alarming decline in fertility. What we're pointing out is that this alarming decline in fertility correlates with this dramatic rise in chemical abortion, which is very interesting when you consider that chemical abortion pills, mifepristone's metabolites, remain active in the water and block progesterone, which is the vital fertility hormone. So think about if we are drinking something that blocks a vital fertility hormone and we're seeing a decrease in our fertility rates, do we think that we should be investigating this? This is something we're pointing out to Congress, pointing out to the FDA, EPA. We can't prove there's causation because the studies haven't been done. What we're saying is the studies need to be done. There's a clear correlation here. So please do a proper, legally compliant, scientifically comprehensive environmental assessment on mifepristone and abortion pill contaminants.
So if mifepristone is eliminated, where would the abortion industry go? What would be their next tact, basically?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is part of why we think it's also so vital to focus on the need to ensure proper disposal of human fetal remains and medical waste, because the abortion industry has promised it will move to misoprostol only abortion. So you can have an abortion with just misoprostol. And in fact, this can be prescribed off label. Off label prescriptions is common practice. In that case, we would say you're still generating medical waste, human fetal remains, and you still need to ensure you're abiding by all federal laws related to and state laws related to medical waste. So the FDA would still be well within its rights to call for a new environmental assessment that would ensure it studied the possible negative effects of putting human remains into our water systems, these remains that can cause sewer overflows, which are environmental hazards. These remains, I mean, consider this. If any other industry had a daily standard practice of disposing of something into the sewer system that caused an overflow, say regs, in my industry, we put regs into the toilets every day. That could cause an overflow, and I'm pretty sure someone would call upon me to prohibit that. To say we need to regulate this, we need to prohibit that. The same is true of abortion providers that are instructing women to sit on the toilet during a home abortion, and that basically say, yeah, don't worry about it. You can just flush the fetal remains, the medical waste. This is something that has been overlooked for decades. And it is high time that the abortion industry is called to account. And again, it's an opportune time. The Trump administration actually has made a priority clean water. Trump has said from day one of his first administration that he wants crystal clean drinking water for us. He wants clean water. So what we would argue is this aligns perfectly with that. If we want clean water, we need to clean up the way that we do chemical abortions. Ideally, we would prohibit abortions. But if you're going to do them, you better ensure that the medical waste and the fetal remains that are generated are properly disposed of.
Is there, wastewater treatment plants are being, dealing with fecal matter and tissue, that kind of clean toilet tissue. Is there anything that are there any systems around that can deal with the active ingredients of mifepristone or misoprostol that would wipe out, obviate those active ingredients and thereby would help our drinking water?
It's a really great question. And it's a tough one because obviously there are two things here. First, I'll just say misoprostol doesn't form active metabolites in the same way that mifepristone does. So different pharmaceuticals are going to form different sorts of metabolites. But in addition, while there are some advanced treatment plants that can remove some pharmaceutical contaminants, they're far more expensive. It would take decades to fully implement that across the United States. And it still wouldn't deal with the issue of the medical waste that's being generated. So we really think that needs to be the focus. And in the meantime, because we don't know the harm that mifepristone is causing in the environment or in humans, there's a huge concern there because what we do know suggests there is harm. What we do know is that other endocrine disrupting chemicals, and maybe I should define endocrine disruptor first. So an endocrine disruptor is anything that mimics, blocks, or interferes with your body's hormones. Mifepristone acts as an endocrine disruptor. Other endocrine disrupting chemicals, like PFAS or forever chemicals, are known to cause harm. They're, in fact, highly regulated. Well, I shouldn't say highly. There are two of them are now being regulated by the EPA because of their potential to cause harm, including to reproduction. And so we know that even in very trace, and I'm talking parts per trillion here, that these chemicals, these endocrine disrupting chemicals can cause harm over time. What could mifepristone be doing over time in our bodies? So it's already been in the water for decades. And if we've been drinking this, again, if we need to do the study to determine what is actually happening here, we need to do something now. We can't wait for all the wastewater treatment plants to be updated. Again, that would take years and cost quite a lot of money at this stage. So what we're saying is do the study now to determine if and how this is affecting human health, because we know other similar contaminants are affecting our health. and Americans deserve to be healthy again. That's Secretary Kennedy's entire mantra right now is making America healthy again.
How long would those studies take, though? 5 years, 10 years, or just a couple of years?
It's a great question. It depends on the study, on the makeup of the study. I would wager you could get a lot of the information we need within 6 months to a year. I don't know that for certain, but that would be my best estimate.
And would the abortion industry be liable for these chemicals that supposedly are injurious to human beings?
A great question. I know some argue that they would be. They certainly should be. I would argue probably equally alongside that, it's the federal government, the EPA and the FDA that would be liable. They're the ones that should have ensured they did a proper environmental assessment. And if they did, well, in my view, they wouldn't have approved the drugs in the first place, or at the very least, they would have ensured that the medical waste being generated was properly dealt with rather than ignoring the issue entirely.
So what do we do to drink water then nowadays? Just maybe spring water? Is that the best way to
Yeah.
go? Or
No, it's a great question. And I'm just going to be very honest with you. My first and foremost point that I always make is pray over your water, pray over your food. That's number one. But also drink filtered water. You can purchase filtered water at home, but even doing that, don't forget that these fetal remains, these human remains, are still entering our environment, the wastewater systems, and that disturbs my relationship with the environment. When I think that aborted fetal remains are entering wastewater systems um, and possibly partaking or being part of sewer overflows that are entering lakes and streams and rivers, that makes me less likely. Personally, I'm going to be reticent to go swimming in my local lake or river. When I think about that, and so this issue is vast, and it's one that I think people need to keep in mind when they're talking to their lawmakers. We have a lot of resources available to bring up some of these points with your local and federal lawmakers. Abortioninourwater.org will provide a lot of sample emails and talking points because we do think everybody should be talking about this issue.
now
We think we
that
need to be getting this out there.
that website again is what? Can we put that on the screen?
Abortioninourwater.org. We have multiple different resources available. We have our white paper, extensive special report where we go into all of this into much more detail. 87 pages, over 300 footnotes. So that I encourage folks to read that. If you want the quick at a glance version, we have a resource available on our website for that as well. And it's just a one pager that you can share with local your church groups. You can share with your lawmakers, and then we have on our website as well a toolkit. The toolkit is going to provide again some talking points, sample emails to your lawmakers, sample social media posts. So get this out on social media, share it with others. We even have a PowerPoint that you could share. Anybody listening who wants to learn more and become an expert, go talk to your local Rotary Club, share with your local church group. Make sure this information is getting out there, and we'd be happy to work with folks who are interested in doing that.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you having been a legislator, what kind of legislation would you put forth to try to mitigate the harmful effects of what we're experiencing now in our water in the United States?
A phenomenal question. First and foremost, if it was up to me in an ideal world, I would simply ban chemical abortion. I mean, I would ban all abortion, but I would particularly ban chemical abortion, not only because of the harm it's causing to our environment, but also because, like I said, of the extreme trauma women experience when they're at home alone, looking at their aborted baby in the toilet. It's inhumane, really, and they need to be informed of the risks. Now, if that weren't possible, and in the current political context and in the current political environment, unfortunately, I don't think that is possible. I think we'll get there. I think we have some work to do culturally to educate folks on the importance of the sanctity of life. But then I would require cremation or burial. Babies that are babies that die in the womb are still babies. They deserve dignified treatment, and so I would require, if you're going to have an abortion, and you're going to have the chemical abortion pills, you need to collect the fetal remains. Then either you yourself arrange for the burial of the cremation, or you return it to the abortion provider and they can do it for you. There's actually a bill in Congress on this already, and several states actually have cremation or burial requirements. Now, some of those states, I would actually say probably most of them, only apply to abortions that are performed in a brick and mortar clinic. They don't tend to apply to at-home abortions, but I would say that they need to apply to at-home abortions.
What kind of abortions?
At home.
Oh, at home.
So
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
So chemical abortion normally chemical abortions are referred to as at-home abortions.
Oh,
However, they can occur anywhere. They can occur in a hotel, in a bathroom, in a restaurant, in your car. But it's colloquially they're called at-home abortion.
yes. Well, Abigail Forman, thank you so much for coming on today and broaching the topic, really, that needs to be talked about a lot more here in the United States and worldwide, probably, as the world moves more and more towards chemical abortions versus surgical abortions. Thank you very much, Abigail.
Thank you. It's
And
been a delight to speak with you.
And we hope you found today's show to be unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. Thanks for watching and listening. My name is Brendan O'Connell, your friend for life.